Hello and welcome to the Esports Meta. My name is Billy Sims and I'm about to run down everything video game and competitive video game news, esports, that's what they're called. This week, I'm a little flustered. We had a little bit of a rough start, but we're ready to go, ready to bring you all the news stories. And we've got a bunch of big topics today for you. We're going to be recapping our final thoughts on EWC, the Esports World Championships. Week 8 just wrapped, and we're going to be giving you our thoughts, giving some scores, some highlights, and our best of and worst ofs. Stick around for that. We're going to also be talking about Deadlock and how the NDA was just lifted kind of suddenly. Talk about maybe why and how, and kind of gather all the information, which is pretty much going to boil into, we told you so. Stick around for that. We've got a couple more stories. We're going to be talking about LCS update scores. We're going to be talking about Marvel Rivals release date and the Magic the Gathering band update for August. It's finally here and it might be what you were looking for. It certainly is what we were expecting, but maybe not what we were hoping for. But either way, to talk about all these things, we're going to need a partner in crime for this, and I'm going to have to bring in my co-host with the most, Nick Layton. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing great as always, man. I say the same thing every time. I'm great. Absolutely blessed. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Too blessed to be stressed. Let's get at it. All right. I know we've got a lot of opinions, especially when it comes to the Magic story. We're just like hinting at what's to come for that one. But, you know, the couple other topics, Nick, we've got Marvel Rivals. We've got Esports World Cup. We've got Deadlock. Any thoughts and any focus points you want to bring up or sidewinders? Give me a curveball, man. If you have anything that we should be talking about that we aren't right now.
Nothing we should be talking about. You guys hear about Concord? Like, it's like, that's all I got.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to start off today's episode. We're going to get us kicked off with Marvel Rivals. And really, it's just Gamescom was happening this past weekend. Gamescom, not com was happening this past weekend. A lot of news, a lot of information. I know Blizzard had a big part there, but not to be upstaged. Marvel Rivals wanted to show its stuff, so it decided to drop its release trailer. Let me make sure volume's set here, and let's roll it. It looks like the game's going to be coming out in December. I think December 6th.
I think I remember that's the date. It's like going to be no betas until then too, like no more open betas and everything. So that was it. You guys gotta have your fix, and then that was it.
Yeah, but this trailer is also announcing Bucky and Captain America as 2 new playable characters for launch, giving us the hype intro for both. Nick, I know we've talked about this. I know we've talked about this before, but how do you feel about the anime style here? Because like we're starting to see a lot more of it, especially with the videos like that.
This is like the worst. Like I'll be honest, we've talked about it. This reminds me of like the worst comic book art. To be honest, they're very bulky people. Like everything is very bulky. Like everybody's huge. They're all the same size. Captain America's the same size as Bucky. You know, they're all the same size as Groot. Like, what's going on here? Like, you know, like, right. Sure, the women characters are small. The small female characters, like, that's it. Like, you know, but that's what I'm getting from everything. It's just a little too bulky.
I know, like, when we were talking about that, I had mentioned that the Punisher, like, looks like the same size as the Hulk. So canonically, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, you're right. Look at Doom.
It looks disgusting. Like and like I would consider him most of the time. If I didn't know this game, I'd be like, oh damn, they made Doom fat. Like as a fat guy, I'd be like, all right, yeah, like we got fat dude supervillain. Like no, he's just super bulky and like looks strong. Like looks like he could pick up a house.
Probably could.
Dr. Doom definitely can pick up a house. He can definitely magic up some house and do some stuff. But it's not really like the point. Right, like Spider-Man's the only person who like kind of like looks like his character, right? They all resemble their characters, but like Spider-Man looks like his character, right?
Yeah, and overall too, like it's like a minor like nitpicking on because we're so familiar with his IP and like we've kind of seen how this goes, like the 90s style of comic books and comic characters, they have a tendency of being that like super jacked, roided out version of it, hypersexualized. And like you're not seeing the super hypersexualization here, but we are seeing the roided out versions where they all do kind of look the same. I wonder like if that is like a model issue, but either way, man, like just looking at this video, well, first and foremost, you know, it's coming out December 6th. So if you're excited for it, looking to play it, your next time you're going to get your hands on it is December 6th. It's going to be free to play. They promise that no heroes are going to be behind paywalls. I'm sure they're going to have a battle pass. I'm sure they're going to also have a lot of skins you can buy, you know, get the variants of the different characters you want. The game will be coming out on Steam, Epic, as well as PS5 and Xbox. So also no Switch, which is kind of surprising, and no mobile support currently.
All right, like I mean, I'll say this right now before like this comes out, right? Like maybe they have something planned before like the release of this. Like this is another, like, granted, there should be like, you should probably wait for like a player base and stuff, but no, like it's Marvel, right? It's Disney. The game's going to be played by a lot of people, and it's already not supported as an esport. Like it's kind of, it screams exactly what they're looking for, which is your money, you know? Like you don't even have like a big tournament for the release of the game as a competitive Overwatch potential killer. Like it seems
well, in fairness,
seems weird.
In fairness, though, it is pretty far away. December, it's only August, late August. So we do have like 3 or 4 months. So I doubt they're going to be announcing a tournament. They did have some pretty decent community tournaments in game during the betas. But yeah, I can kind of see your point where it's like, you know, you would expect this title and stuff. They might have more up their sleeve. They might be holding stuff back. Maybe they just haven't decided to develop it yet. They're waiting to see on those things. It's a fair criticism, but I still want to give them a little credit where credit's due. But one thing I will not, and this is where like a high bar I want to set, because there is, you kind of touched on this, there is a lot of hype from the Overwatch community saying this is going to be the Overwatch killer. I severely disagree. And like my big point for it, and I'm going to scroll back to the actual gameplay. There's Captain America's big face. It still looks floaty. So like from now till release, they really need to like fix the way it moves and feels, because we're seeing other games that are now coming out, cough, cough, Deadlock, moving way smoother, way better. And like, could it be the difference of Valve versus NetEase? Could it be the difference of we're aiming just to go for battle pass money kind of mentality versus let's make a good game and competitive game? Maybe, but either way, for this game to be taken seriously, like they need to change this, and I'm gonna play it now, and you can see how like jerky and floaty it kind of feels. Like he didn't move anywhere there, but look at this. He does the pull thing, and then he has this like ultimate jump up thing. Like it's very floaty, very jerky, and like it's been this way the entire time I've seen the game, and it hasn't changed my opinion on it. And even when I got my hands on it, it felt jerky. It was fun, absolutely fun, but I don't know how seriously I could take it as a competitive sport, and I don't know how seriously I could take it as the Overwatch killer in that way. It's not to say that Overwatch doesn't have its faults, it does, etc., but I don't think that this is going to be the hands down solution that a lot of people are hyping and selling it to be. But we have a date to look forward. So yeah, you want to chime in?
Well, I was gonna say, like, I say this all the time, right? Like, Bobby Kotick couldn't take this company out. Like, no one's taking these games out. Like, they make solid games. Overwatch, WoW, Hearthstone is solid, even though I don't care for Hearthstone as a Magic player. They're all like fun, relatively well-made games. Like, it's nonsense to say that like you're gonna take them out. like their quality for their product is a little too high for it to just go away just because something else comes out. But just to say this, like, no going easy on Disney. Like, I don't like Disney and Marvel. Like, there's no going easy on one of the biggest entertainment companies to exist. And they just released like Lorcana, right? Disney released Lorcana. Now they have like an Overwatch game for Marvel. I'm very much like hard on Disney for trying to take my money. Like, so like they try, and like they get me sometimes, but like I'm gonna be hard on them. Like right here, the game itself, like it looks fun, but the thing that like keeps jumping out at me, and I don't really know how to properly say this, so it might come out a little bit messed up. It seems like the floatiness and everything, of the moves and everything like that, like the bullet time and projectile speed looks a little slow. Like everything looks reactable regardless of skill level. If that like makes sense, right? Like so when you're like Genji and you're throwing out, like you're doing your ultimate in Overwatch, right? Like people, like the person playing Genji half the time isn't even reacting on when they're Genji, you know what I mean? So like here it just seems like it's a little bit more reactable for all like skill levels, which might generate like better, like this is just me, like me being devil's advocate against myself, right? Like this might actually generate a little bit more of not like a nicer player base, but like the player base itself might be a little bit more cohesive because it's so reactable at all skill level. Like look at it. It looks very reactable.
And like it does feel like it's reactable and floaty, but honestly when I was playing it, it felt super fast paced, and you still saw the same people have the problems with the Genji adjacent Black Panther or Spider-Man strategies when people were playing them. And I felt like it was harder to aim at them with the kind of jerky cursor and movement and aiming. And like I don't think it's a mouse sensitivity thing overall. I think it's just like a game design. So I'd like to see them smooth that out, polish it out. I wouldn't doubt that they're trying to hit like a lowest common denominator, just like for audience and players, just trying to make it playable for everybody. But if they're making it playable for everybody, I would expect the mobile. I'd expect Switch as well, because it does look and feel like a mobile game. And let's be honest, the Switch is just a mobile and a glorified mobile device, right? It really is just a tablet.
I hear you. It's a bathroom gaming, bro. like it's a huge like Game Boy. Like I'm not even joking. Like it's a bathroom console. Like, and it's not to be disrespectful. It's like calling it shit or anything. Like you just can play it in the bathroom.
Right. And like that, it's good for what it is, right? And I think that's kind of what we need to like approach Marvel Rivals as. Like it's a chaotic 6v6. Everybody's kind of doing everything. It is less refined in that competitiveness than Overwatch has been, even though Overwatch isn't much a higher bar when it comes to it. But we might see the same struggles go through with this. We might see the same development issues, etc. But we've got 3 months until we get our hands on it again. We've got 3 months of no news until we get news, and hopefully they make some progress, make some changes, make it look good, because we do know it's fun. It's gonna be fun.
True. Can we play a little bit of like I don't want to say bingo, but because I don't have many things for this, but like I feel like we'll know more about the battle pass, than the game. Like I think we're gonna know more about like the actual battle pass than the actual game, even though we've already had betas by the time December hits.
Yeah, and they've kind of had like a mock battle pass to try it out, the systems, and make sure everything's running smoothly. But yeah, I'm sure that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because like, we want to know if they're trying to scam us. They're trying to like meme and money for things. But it is what it is. Looking forward to this one in December. Again, it looks a lot of fun. They've got Captain America and Bucky coming. Winter Soldier. They're teasing some Hydra stuff. They're teasing some more Doom stuff. But December 6th, get ready to play. I'm going to hold my breath a little bit, just look to have some fun, but I don't see this as being like a huge hype thing beyond like the initial 2 weeks. All right. Nick, we're going to pivot into the next sort of topic here. But if you're ready to go, are you ready to talk about League of Legends and update on some scores?
Yeah, we can talk about League of Legends. It's a pretty depressing week overall.
All right, let's move on into LCS North America. We're just going to recap some scores from the weekend, kind of run down what we were talking about, prepping for you last week. And it's kind of what we expected. I mean, I think that's going to be a little bit of a theme of this episode today. What's going on in the upper bracket, what's going on in the lower bracket. Nick, if you want to run us through this, give us your thoughts.
So, we already saw that in round one with the upper bracket, right? We had Dignitas lose like 0-3 against 100 Thieves, which was an obvious win. They did a great job just shutting them out. FlyQuest did a great job with Energy Kia. And then we move into round two. Round two for the upper bracket, exactly like we were saying last week, like Team Liquid, well, not exactly, right? 50% accurate on this one. Team Liquid is actually, 3-0. They're the best team that we have right now. They're doing really good. They're doing exactly what they've been doing, right? And there was really no challenge. So they ended up shutting out 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Here's where it happened. Like, this could be, a couple reasons why, but Cloud9 ends up losing to FlyQuest. They only won one game against FlyQuest, and they're supposed to be like the super team, right? Like one of the, they're doing really well.
They were one of 3 teams that had a positive record in this split, right? Everybody else, I think 5 out of the 8 had less than 500 win rate. You had 3 teams, and Team Liquid, we kind of like called it. They went 7-0, so of course they're gonna like look strong, come in strong. But yeah,
like this is one of those situations where you don't know where Cloud9 really was like lacking. Were they lacking in scrims? Were they lacking in coming up with a different strategy than what they've been doing the whole entire time? Right? Like this is just, it could just be FlyQuest just had their number on this one. Like the game itself was like pretty dominant for FlyQuest. It wasn't too.
And that was something we were talking about to look out for last week when we were talking about these games. We kind of expected FlyQuest to take NRG Kia. NRG Kia going 2-5 in this split. They didn't look strong. They looked like they barely squeaked into this whole bracket exchange anyway. So FlyQuest was going to probably win, which they did. And we were saying, I remember we were saying specifically, they need to get the bad habits out and not learn any bad habits here. And we've seen how FlyQuest can have like a good streak, like in the what is it, the first stage or the second stage before MSI, they were able to push really hard. And then here they are, no bad habits, come in strong against Cloud9. Either Cloud9 lost it or FlyQuest won it. What do you think?
This is where you can't really be the players themselves, right? But the players haven't had a match in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Like same thing for like Team Liquid, right? But maybe their coaching staff and everything like that is just keeping them a little bit more fresh, a little bit more warmed up. And who knows? Like I don't know if I didn't see anything, but like maybe nobody wanted to scrim with like Cloud9, like previous to this, like because usually what ends up happening is that the couple teams like FlyQuest and Cloud9 in this sense would scrim against each other in order to get ready for like Team Liquid, right? And that's just not like happening, right? They're not doing that because then they're going to give away secrets. So
yeah,
but and then we also had if you want to scroll down, then we had the lower bracket where Dignitas ends up beating Energy Kia in a very very close game with 3-2. It was like it was interesting. Overall, the playoffs in North America, the playoffs in Korea. I haven't really watched Europe, but we're having a little bit too many lane swaps right now. Not roll swaps. Having too many lane swaps is just making the game boring. Like even SKT or T1 Academy was placing KT over the weekend. Like this happened yesterday, and it was another playoff game. This had another fearless draft, and it was exciting for like the fearless draft, but the game itself was like a blowout. There was lane swaps. Like lane swapping is just not fun for the first 10 minutes of the game. It's pretty aggravating. I'd rather just like have everybody just get gold on the ground and start at 10 minutes. Like it's so boring to me.
Fair. It feels ceremonial at that point. Like they're just going through the motions and kind of just like pick, counter pick, not literally pick ban, but like, I do a move, action, reaction, like with lane swapping.
Lane swapping, I'm like, this would be like a hot take real quick. Like lane swapping makes me think that the game needs to be played at 4 players and not 5. Like that's what that's what lane swapping says to me. Like just delete top lane. He's not playing the game for the first 15, 20 minutes anyway.
I was going to ask what would be excluded in that point. You kind of just answered for it, which I think we could dive in deeper and kind of do a whole theory crafting on how that would work and what we'd like to see out of that. But I'm not sure we should go into that right about now.
No, the simple answer is it's top lane because it's called the island and they play by themselves anyway. And then when lane swaps happen, they're even like they even play nothing. They're basically playing solitaire, walking around the map for the most part. So, lane swaps negatively impact the top laners. So might as well just not have top.
Interesting. Would it be like I have like so many questions. Like, would the map just be a 2-lane map rather than a 3-lane map? And when you just have like one jungle in the middle, I think that would probably be the answer to it. But but anyway, it'd be interesting if they end up pick banning like a certain lane as well. Like you get rid of X or Y. But anyway, keeping on focus, I want to just. You're right. With Dignitas and NRG, it's a little bit surprising the lower bracket, but we kind of figured Dignitas would take a win over NRG. We kind of figured that's who was going to be playing in that first lower bracket game. But surprising that it went to a 3-2. NRG was kind of fighting to stay alive here, even though they were probably fighting like the next weakest team. It doesn't really mean much going 3-2. They're really fighting to go back into a vengeance match with 100 Thieves here in the lower bracket too. And kind of just looking forward to expect later this week, FlyQuest is going to be taking on Team Liquid Honda for the upper bracket, I guess, invitation to Worlds. And then on the lower bracket, we got Dignitas and 100 Thieves in their... would you call this a vengeance match? Because they did play in the first round, and maybe Dignitas is looking to like come back with some momentum after a win here. And like 100 Thieves taking the L on against Team Liquid.
So it's definitely like a revenge match. But like going forward for like the playoffs for North America, like they should really take heed of this. These are the worst games coming up. Like these are like the worst games in general without like huge swinging upsets. This legitimately sucks. Like it legitimately sucks to have the lower bracket even happen for the most part. And
I'm an advocate. I'm a real big advocate that the lower bracket can contain some of the most excitement. But when you have teams in these situations, a lot of times, and like I know we've talked about this with League, a lot of players, a lot of coaches want to go to a comfort picks. They want to just go to the thing that they think is going to win, even if it's not the best of the meta. It's just the thing they've scrimmed a bunch. It's the thing that they're comfortable with, the synergies they work on. So like I think that's also a part that makes this maybe less appealing, because I love lower brackets. I love lower bracket playoffs because there's a lot on the line, especially this time of year. But, will we see that sort of like storyline, that excitement? Who knows? Energy Dignitas game previously, it was 3-2, but was it exciting? I don't know. And that's kind of up in the grabs for the rest of the lower bracket here. I would love to see that, but who knows how deep they'd really go.
I mean, like for me, like I hate this lower bracket. There's not enough players. There's not enough games and teams that are in this lower bracket. So like best case scenario for like viewership, FlyQuest beats Team Honda, right? Not even gonna call them Liquid at this point, right? Like beats Team Honda over here. Team Honda gets dropped to the bot lane, right? Or lower bracket, dropped to the bot lane.
Lane swapping. Lane swapping.
They get dropped to the lower bracket, and then they powerhouse it back into a rematch in the finals. Then, like, what's the other option? Well, FlyQuest drops down, then FlyQuest has a rematch against Cloud9. Thank Christ we get to see the same shit for weeks on end. Like, no, I hate this shit. I hate it so much because to me, it's like I'm gonna watch the same games.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch the same champions being picked. There's no evolution that's going to happen throughout these games for the most part, right? Like I'm not really going to have a huge patch coming in because like Worlds is going to be coming up. So we're going to have like we're going to have another patch before Worlds. No. Legitimately, I think that these are like this is part of the viewership problem for League and other, people like League. Right now, everybody's going to bow out. There are 4 matches that no one's going to watch. For the most part,
until Worlds, yeah, no one's gonna watch until Worlds.
Well, they're gonna watch finals, right? They'll come back to like watch the finals, but like you're probably not gonna watch these next couple games because they really just don't They like don't matter.
Right.
And things are probably going to play out the way that you assume based on
So,
the
real talk, real question here. Kind of wrap up this segment about scores updates and like what to expect this week with League. But like looking beyond this week, looking beyond Worlds, is this and the things you're talking about, the issues and the friction here for viewership and for the competitiveness, is that going to be solved with the Americas region next year?
no, it's still going to be like 10, like it'll still be like 10 players. It's a formatting issue. Like League, like this doesn't, this will never net if you only have, you know, what, 2, 4, 6 teams, right? And again, there was only 8 teams in this one. So
Right.
there's 2 more extra teams when we go to the Americas again, because we lost out the 10 teams. Again, it's 10 teams. It'll still be 6 teams, right? This doesn't change.
Still wild, man. That's still wild that it's only 6 and like a bracket. Like at that point, it's almost like worth just putting everybody in to like a play-in playoff where it's like anybody's game at that point, because you know you're just seeding or you have to go farther. Yeah, I can see what you're talking about where it's like it is a format issue. Do you think Fearless Draft would like spice it up or make it more exciting here on North America side, or?
Like I think like yes and yes and no. I think like a combination of like Fearless Draft probably with like something else. Like I'm not 100% sure, and like I could say some spicy stupid sentences of like ban every champion that was played last week. Like because of how many games are played, like just like every champion that was played last week, and now you can only play like the new champion. So like,
Interesting.
I don't know. There's like there's a couple different things, but really it's not 6 teams that play each other for like it's not even a round robin. It's just it's gross, dude. It's gross. I don't like it.
It's like, why are they even playing playoffs when they like, you know, the summer stage, they played each other once. Team Liquid goes 7-0, and like we were complaining about how a 2-5 team gets into the playoffs. It's the playoffs. It's not really a playoff at that point. It just feels bad. I do want to say though that these teams have good players. These teams can be good, but like there's something that's not happening with them. And there's like it could be coaching and strategy, it could be format, it could be the league restrictions, it could be how much they're able to scrim and who they're scrimming against. But it could also be patch and meta, of course. There's a lot of variables with that, but I'm very curious in the idea of something like Fearless, because it might be the spark or the chaos that some of these players need so that they're not locked into a bad patch, right? With one that's not conducive to their skill set. It might be good for a team and how their strategy, they can try something new and they're not just locked into that one-minded coach, single-minded fury, basically going at it, hacking away. So I'm excited about that potentiality, but I'm not really hopeful that we're going to see it over here in North America, because I feel like a lot of fans don't want something like that. They don't understand it, perhaps. They're not familiar with the idea of it. But hey, this is Billy speaking to you, the audience. If you're a League of Legends esports fan, if you like the Fearless Draft, if you don't like the Fearless Draft, we want to hear from you. A little bit of call to action. Check out our social media. Let us know there. Let us know right here. We're looking at the comments as we're filming this, so we want to know what your thoughts are. We've already said what ours are. Any final thoughts on your end, Nick? What do you think as far as, you know, the rest of LCS tournament in this lower bracket? We already know you're pretty salty on that lower, and we're not expecting much out of it.
No, like my point on the saltiness on that is like, how disappointing is it to viewers and advertisers if FlyQuest faces Team Liquid now, and then 4 matches later, FlyQuest faces Team Liquid in the finals? They're like, they already paid for that shit. Like the advertiser, like, I already paid for this game, dude. The advertiser, yeah, but they're doing it again.
Yeah, but I don't know if the advertisers, I don't know if the advertisers give a shit if it's like Team Liquid playing NRG Kia. They just want to see a bunch of viewers. But like that's more where I think your point's made, where, oh yeah, we're gonna see Cloud9 playing, you know, FlyQuest again, and we're gonna see them play a third time. Like that's when the fans are gonna be like, okay, good. Especially when they're kind of one-sided, especially when it's like doesn't feel exciting. Like what makes it different? What makes it exciting? What makes it a rivalry? This isn't like traditional sports where there's like 100 years of like bad blood and penalties here, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I watch a lot of these games. And like everybody out there can be ask themselves this exact same question. Do you think I'm going to waste my time watching FlyQuest versus Team Liquid round 2? Like, legitimately, especially if like what I think is about to happen is going to happen. Like, I think Team Liquid is going to blow FlyQuest out of the water. Do you think I'm going to watch that again? Like, do you legitimately, like, and you know, this doesn't happen every single season. It happens a good amount.
Yeah.
But like, do you think I'm going to watch this? Like, this is the problem with the viewership. And the only thing that switched was it goes from best of 3 to best of 5. Come on, bro. Like, come on.
We've already done this bracket like what, twice, 3 times already with the tournaments and the stages, the splits. So like, are we just seeing the same thing? Is it a format on the macro scale issue? But you know, I don't disagree. I kind of see what you're talking about. What's that?
Only 1 point left. I think the best way to counteract this nonsense, right, is to not like Fearless Draft is great, right? But I think every single team needs 15 players. And the reason why I say 15 players is you need a sub in every role and you need to have a B squad, right? And if you like whoever you put out on the A squad this week, they can't play next week. That's just it. Like, and so, you know, if you do FlyQuest versus Team Liquid and you want to beat them this week and you put in your best team and you end up beating them, you know, and then you can't play your best players in the finals or something like that. Like, dude, that would make that interesting to me because I would watch the second game then, you know, if I'm watching the same thing.
I think that's a real spicy take because I think that's a thing organizations wouldn't like because then they'd have to pay more people and they're trying to keep budgets down. Yeah, but like this is like barely profitable. I don't know how barely profitable, but like this is a struggling thing where they're talking about how, you know, they can't do this, that, the other thing. And maybe it's because it's just the organizations can get lazy, etc. And that's a whole other conversation. But like I would see that that is the place where the pushback is happening. Otherwise, I'm intrigued by it. It sounds like, you know, hockey where they change lines, they change shifts, but that's because of a physical exhaustion. That's because of matchups. You know, basketball, you get the small guy versus the big guy. You try to like leverage that matchup. Baseball, you have a pitcher pitching every couple days because their arm gets too tired because they're chucking meatballs 100 miles per hour, right? Like there's a physical component in that. And I know there's a physical component in here, but it'd be interesting if they could try to force that a bit more, where it's like the player goes on cooldown, right? You got a 1 week cooldown. There you go.
Something like it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but like something has to give. And adding more games to a match doesn't change anything. Like I like it. I like watching a series of 5, but I don't like watching lane swaps, and I don't like watching the same game over and over again, which happens all the time because like in these matches, like if they perform well on a champion, you're going to ban out that champion or you're not, and they're going to play it again. So like you could see games where one player plays the same champion 3 times and they beat him 3 times. Like, so, you know, that's where it needs to change.
Yeah. That's a whole other dimension of that. The pick ban really makes the longevity of games or the longevity of series that much more repetitive, perhaps. Maybe that's another viewership issue where it's like you're saying it creates the samesies, the feeling every time you're watching it because the same pick and ban happens because you know they're going to pop off and you need somebody else to pop off and they're not gonna. But anyway.
Yep.
Interesting conversation. We'll see how this week goes. We're still going to be watching League this week, checking out scores as we head into Worlds, but we've got more stories to go into, a little bit more info to catch you up on. And speaking of Worlds, we're going to go into the Esports World Cup as our next subject matter. Week 8 just wrapped up. That's been 2 months of glorious world competition at esports with huge prize pools. Culminating to this point, we've got a lot to talk about here where we're going to be going over the club championship points in just a second. We have Rocket League scores and Tekken scores, some of the last games to be played in the tournament. And then finally, we're going to give you our best and worst of EWC, as well as what we'd like to see change or how we'd like to see this go in the future. Because we assume that's going to be happening again next year. And we know the Olympics are picking up esports now. So let's get talking about it. So we already know that Week 8 happened. Let me swap us into a bigger view here. We're going to be talking about the Rocket League finals here, and we're not going to just jump into a congratulations, flashbang you for a second, but we're going to bring it to Team BDS winning first place, bringing home $200,000 as your Rocket League Esports World Championship champions titles. Team BDS first place, and looky behold, Team Falcons number 2, bringing home 600 club points for that club championship. They also bring home $80,000, so a pretty significant drop in prize money from first to second, over double. Gen G in third place with 40K, and G2 Esports sharing third place with 40K, third, fourth respectively. Pretty straightforward. We're just, as far as the scores go, run down the rest of the list here. We see Team Vitality, Furia, Space Station, Twisted Minds, Power, ultimately rounding us out, bringing us home into 10th place to 10 grand. All right.
Thundercats got 5th place. Not bad, not bad.
Not bad. And then the other game that they ran this week was Tekken. And a congratulations to Tekken winner Ulsan, winning first place and $300,000. Heading on down to the standings so we can see ultimately what happened. Ulsan first place, but looky Team Falcons again with Atif, 140,000. Another prize difference that's not quite half, where earlier in the tournament we did see the prize money go double every single time. Yagami third place and double third and fourth place respectfully. And here's the list of the rest of the winners for the top 10 here in Tekken.
Good John. That's so good. That's so good, dude. That is such a good name for a fighting game, bro. The John. I love bro. That's so good. That is so good. I love that game.
It is a classic meme. It's a classic meme from our day and age of fighting games. No Johns allowed.
Yeah. The John though. It's so good. It's so good, man. So good.
All right. So moving into the next part of EWC, as we kind of like push through this topic here, is the club championship points. Bring it straight up to the standings. And it's kind of straightforward to what we were talking about for the last month or so. Team Falcons on top with 5,600 points, 2 golds, 4 silver, and 4 bronze. Here's a list of all the games they competed in and ended up winning. You know, really solid showing from them. But generally speaking, like we talked about, they were fielding a ton of players. Look at how many players. Everybody. They had 3 people competing in Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, they weren't good players though. Mr. 17th, 28th, and 29th. Everybody like they did pretty well. Like there were a lot of players in a lot of these games. And for the most part, they're breaking like the top 10. But
yeah,
you say like in tournaments, right? This is like a lot of players are top 16. The Street Fighter's where they perform the worst. That's it. And like Street Fighter's like, it's not easy. Like it's not an easy game at all. Like there'd be no doubt in my mind that I would get absolutely bodied by every single one of these Street Fighter players.
And if I recall correctly, with Street Fighter specifically, the players from Japan were just housing everybody. I think there was like 4 or 5 in the top 10 from Japan. So like it makes sense that, these guys here would likely not, as they're probably, representing Team Falcons and maybe the Middle East and Saudi Arabia regions for the competitive game here. It is a tough game to break into, Street Fighter 6. But yeah, these guys definitely struggled. This team struggled with that specifically. But you're right. Otherwise, it's 14, 17, 13, 10. They're going top 10, top 12 every time, top 8, right?
Yeah. Top 16 in any tournament format is like with this many players. Like most of them have like so many players and so many teams. Granted, not all of them have 16 players, right? But if you're talking about like Tekken and like Street Fighter, there's not, they're not coming in last place, man. Like these are really solid results just overall.
And those players are walking away. They're walking away with prize money. It's just they're not getting any club championship points for that team, and it doesn't look like Team Falcon really needs that. They're doing pretty well on their own here. Team Liquid coming in second place. There you have it, your boys holding out the fort, second place with 1 gold, 1 silver, and 3 bronze. StarCraft 2 as their lone gold. Dota bringing them silver, and then having some representation in League of Legends, MLBB, Rainbow Six, StarCraft, the second player in StarCraft, and then some placements in Apex and Football Club and PUBG Mobile.
Solid, and again, solid, except for Street Fighter, the worst one. I think it's pretty common. I think it's pretty common that there's a lot of people who are sponsored in Street Fighter that are definitely good, but they are not the best.
And like we were saying, it goes back into that it's a hard game to compete in, and that APAC region has a chokehold on it. They just know that game's framed at the back of their hand.
Dude, I ain't got no footsies in Street Fighter. I ain't got no footsies whatsoever. That ain't me, dude. That ain't me at all in Street Fighter.
But it seems that Team Falcons was the team with footsies here in the club championship points, undoubtedly. But I think a big reason of that is because of the amount of players they fielded, right? Just a real stark difference of this is what they had for their team and what they played. But then going to Team Liquid, it just looks like half. They had barely half, and they scored about half the points, a little less than half.
The Saudi Arabian team, bro, has a women's team for MLB. I didn't even know that there was a women's only tournament for MLB until I saw Team Falcons had placed in it. First, they're in everything. Every single one of these tournaments that exist, they're in every.
You look at something like T1 and they play in 4 games and place in 2. Teamfight Tactics, they get silver. League of Legends, they got gold. That was quite the story in a competition too with that. But even Tekken and PUBG, they're placing 19th, which is not bad, especially for Tekken. A little bit less than, top 16, but not bad for the world stage for here, etc. They have a 50% win rate here, and they're walking away as 5th place. A solid 5th place, So it's interesting to see that. Nick, how many teams do you think are going to buy into what Team Falcons did this year? Because the money incentive might be there. So what are you thinking as far as the future of this kind of style for tournaments? Esports World Cup is going to do this again next year, probably. I don't think Olympics are going to be able to do something like this. But do you see other tournaments maybe taking on the same sort of organization kind of push like this is?
So I'm not 100. I would say you're definitely going to be picking up pros that are going to be playing in games that you don't normally have right now, on your squad, on your roster. You're probably, and it'll be easier to pick up a one of on a fighter, in a fighting game, rather than a full team on some of the other Team 1's probably not going to compete in Dota, right? But they'll probably pick up a Street Fighter player, stuff like that. But I mean, a lot is remained to be seen, right? With I don't know what's going to happen with Overwatch. I mean, not Overwatch, the Olympics, and I don't know what's going to happen next year with this. If they're going to skip a year, or if they're going to do this every year, and then the Olympics itself will have to not be played around this time, because there's no shot that if they're going to host them in Riyadh. They're not going to do it at the same time because it would just be overlap and it wouldn't make sense. So they'll probably do it every 6 months, not every 6 months, but on a 6-month interval, right? So maybe you'll have one in the beginning of the year, and then maybe you'll have one in the summer, right? So
True,
winter and summer.
Yeah, winter and summer Olympic kind of style, minus the 2-year gap there. And I also don't know what's going to happen with Overwatch here, but organization-wise, I don't know if FaZe Clan is going to buy into anything other than the shooters. Maybe they pick up a fighting game, right? They do have some, they have notoriety. They have the organizational brand, and I believe they have it on a world stage. Same with a Gaming Gladiators, where you're starting to see them pop up, where but just because they have more teams doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be beneficial. So it's going to be interesting in that, how are they going to field the teams, and is it going to be worth it? I know prize-wise, if they win, it's going to be worth it. But do you think G2 Esports picking up a Street Fighter team, they're going to win some championship points? It's going to cost them, at the very least, hotel sponsorship, air flight kind of stuff to get the player to the event. But then beyond that, are they going to see? I guess they could make it up in brands deals, because otherwise, I was going to say, are they going to see that come back if they don't win, right? And then they drop them if they don't win. Like, it might be one of those meritocracies where it makes sense, but that's where I'm a little skeptical.
There's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to all this stuff, right? Like, new games are going to come out. Are they going to be played? You know?
Almost definitely, yeah. But like,
stuff like
that's
that.
an unknown, yeah.
Are they going to bring like some of the like digital TCG market into it, where it's like Arena, Hearthstone, I don't know, like Pokemon, right? Like, you never know.
Yeah.
One Piece if they make a digital one, Lorcana if they make a digital one, but
I don't even think it has to be digital. I think they could do a physical copy tournament, because they're already shipping the players to these spaces. They already have the locations where they can set up tables and whatnot. And like, maybe it's more of a private event. It's not like 200 players coming to compete. Maybe it's top 50 invitational. Maybe it's top 32, right? Like, maybe it's much more quiet. They could definitely do something where it's TCG and the competitive aspect there.
yeah, it's just a lot of unknown unknowns, right? And we just have to wait and see and what they're going to put out for us, because I'm sure we're going to get some information as soon as we get towards the release date of Marvel Rivals on December 6th, right? We're going to hear more about the Olympics in 2025, if we're going to be doing this tournament again, stuff like that. So
I'm sure when Deadlock gets a little bit more momentum here, and we start talking about that a little bit more, even later in this episode, we'll see some more information about the Olympics. I think I saw Shroud saying he's training for the Olympics currently while playing Deadlock. So a lot of unknowns, and it'll be interesting to see how esports develops.
yeah, let's go America.
One good thing that we can say from the EWC and this club championship point has been the prize support. And granted, there's a lot of controversy behind where the money is coming from, but we do like to see the prize pool and the prize support coming to these players, these teams that work really hard. It's one way to give a good support, good qualification. And here with the club championship points, it's obvious it's worth it to them. First place walks away with $7 million. So Team Falcons, the Prince gets a rebate of $7 million back to him. Team Liquid, $4 million for like having teams, right? Not bad at all. That definitely covers travel expenses and lodging and whatnot for these players, etc. I'm sure it's a pretty penny, maybe a bit of a profit too for that. And if you go all the way to 16th place, you're walking away with 150 grand, which could cover salaries for one team for a year, which isn't too shabby, while still doing the rest of the ecosystem. So, Nick, looking at this prize point, do you see anything that I don't see with the numbers? Do you have any sort of takeaways from looking at this? And what's your pivot point for maybe a tournament that Blizzard will run or Nintendo will run? Because we saw how the World Championship, they really didn't have any prize support behind Pokemon Go.
I'm okay with that. I said that before too. I'm okay with no prize support on Pokemon Go. Because it's not a Nintendo game. It's not a Pokemon company game. It's just a game that has their license that they allow to fair do and stuff. And then they also invite him to the table at Thanksgiving. So I think they're super nice when it comes to the kid who's not even related, who lives down the street that no one's friends with. And they're just like, yeah, come on through, pal. Like, you get to have a nice meal with us. I would never see any Nintendo game on here. Like, you'll never see a Switch game on here. You'll never see a Nintendo game on here. And that's Nintendo's big problem in a nutshell, is that because its image that they want to create is more family based, they really do axe a lot of the competitive aspect on like prize support and stuff like that from a lot of these games.
Let me jump in with a quick question for you too. Would you think we would see Nintendo at the Olympics?
No.
Where it's not so much about prize support, where it's about just gold, silver, and bronze for a country, perhaps?
Nope.
Still no?
No. What are they going to put in? Smash? They already destroyed. They already pissed the community off enough to where, like, I do not know if the community would even be okay with whatever Nintendo would say for.
Oh, we know with it. they would crawl back and for that stage notoriety. They've done far more for far less. But no disrespect from them. It's a very hardy community, a very grindy community. They've been playing Melee for 20 plus years on their own. So of course they would do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, but you know, there's no other Nintendo game what do we have? Splatoon is essentially like a dead game.
One could argue Splatoon. We'll probably see a new Splatoon come out. One could argue maybe like a Mario Kart, which is kind of, you know, probably not a good argument. And then Pokemon, of course. Hey, if you know any other Nintendo games that have good... What's that?
Pokemon is separate. The Pokemon company tells Nintendo what to do. They're one of the biggest, like, if not the biggest brand in the world, man.
I think I read that they made $10 million last year, and that was all of what Mario, Link, and something else, or two other games made for Nintendo. So Pokemon by itself made $10 billion with a B dollars, and that was the same as Mario, Zelda, and two other games combined.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hysterical. So, they'll send Nintendo back to making nudie playing cards, man. Like, they'll send them back to the 80s. Like,
I don't know if you saw, but Nintendo's got a museum they're opening up, so I think they've got a few of those at the museum, just behind glass.
They still make them.
Yeah.
In Japan, they're Japan exclusives. Like,
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
Do not.
But like, what other games? What other games would you? I think Nintendo would have an interest in that, but like, yeah, I would see how they're more hesitant and reserved. But you know, you're right. What games would there be? Would it go back to Double Dash back in the day? Are we talking about like Super Mario Strikers? Like,
yeah, we love Nintendo games, right? Like, we all love Mario games. We all love Nintendo games, but they are whatever genre it is, plus a joke. Like, that's always a Mario branded game. Like, and it's no disrespect to them, right? It's, oh, we do race cars, but a joke. We got shells and shit that'll hit you and knock you out of first place, and like skill based stuff with a randomized like superpower at like random points in the game. Like, it's always good, and then it like adds a joke onto it to make it a little bit more family friendly, so it's not so seriously competitive and cutthroat. Like, that's on every single one of them, right? Like, strikers, tennis, you know, we haven't seen like a crazy Mario bowling yet.
I think, yeah, you know, Wii bowling might come back to the Olympics, right? But I think that's also where, like, you know, the tennis was probably the most stable competitive game, but they did see some characters break the game. They just come too busted, and they don't really have a lot of quick patch support for it. But either way, like, you know, it's a fair point to make, Nick. And that's what makes the community, the grassroots efforts of those games so much better than what Nintendo was doing. And for the current foreseeable future, what they are doing, you know, and that's excluding what Pokemon is doing, because we've already established they're different. But yeah, like the original Super Mario Strikers, there's a community out there doing tournaments and playing that game competitively, and they're doing it at such a high standard, like. And you remove the randomness. Same with like the Mario Kart stuff. I'm sure there's a competitive Mario Party out there somehow with that code, and they're able to like, you know, tighten up that variableness, that gimmick that you're talking about. But I do feel like it's too big for Nintendo to sort of ignore, especially for the notoriety of the Olympics for that brand. I could see EWC never coming to it, not supporting.
They already have an Olympics deal though. Nintendo gets away, already has the Olympics deal of every Olympics they release a game, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. It sells a lot. Like, they make their money off the Olympics. And I'm like, and you can't play that game competitively there or anything like that. So like, it's not really like an ignore, but again, like it's really hard to get the family behind these competitive, like these non-competitive games.
When you say family, I'm still skeptical because it's Nintendo family, but you know that I know we can kind of agree. It's Nintendo is the stick in the mud when it comes to this, but we are seeing a lot of shifts and a lot of exciting things with Esports World Cup and how that wrapped up and went this year. Is it going to be sustainable? Is it you know, profitable or worth it? But you know, as we kind of wrap this up, Nick, I'm going to run down some of the teams that won each of the different games. over this tournament series over the last 2 months, but I want to hear your thoughts about what you liked about the Esports World Cup, what you didn't like. Basically, just rapid fire, shoot them out there as I do a little bit background scroll, showing the teams that won.
All right, so you said that so long. You're gonna scroll, and I'll say what I liked or disliked about the Esports World Cup.
No, yeah. I just want you to be the narrator here. I'm gonna do some background music, perhaps like a little elevator stuff. So if you're ready, clear your voice. Okay.
Sure, man. I'm still confused at what you're looking for. So
what did you like about the Esports World Cup this year as the first time event?
Like the games for the most part, like the certain games that we had just in general. It doesn't really matter like who was playing in it for the most part, right? League being there was like really good for me. I think that there's some games that are like missing, and other games that I think should be like excluded. Like probably like Fortnite should, if your game's not played in China, just get the game out of here. Like no disrespect towards Fortnite. The game's super fun, right? And like we can all love Phil Collins, but like guilty pleasures are a thing, and it doesn't mean it's good. It's like that's how I feel about Fortnite. But like Overwatch was there, super exciting. PUBG, I'm like, I don't know how long these games have while being played at like the Esports World Cup or in the Olympics, just in general. But I do appreciate the games that I like to watch. I think Rocket League being there, Rainbow Six being there. I think PUBG, probably Fortnite, and like probably shouldn't be there for the most part. I think Apex is a really good one to like watch.
Yeah, especially PUBG Mobile, and there's a couple games that had a multiple variety of platforms they were competing in. Like you had the mobile version, and then you had the PC version. Like I can understand that for competitive integrity, but generally speaking, like you're basically doubling the list there at that point.
I think that there should be no difference between like your mobile version of your game and your PC version of your game if you're going to play here, right? So like Teamfight Tactics, like a good example of it, right? Versus like if you were to play Street Fighter 6 mobile versus Street Fighter 6 on console or PC, like it's two different games, right? So I think every mobile game that detracts away from like the main game that it's based on, from console, PC, whatever, like those are the competitive formats, and everything else should not be there. There shouldn't be PUBG.
But I can understand why EWC might want to include it because they're trying to reach out. But like at that point, just pick a lane. Either pick the mobile or pick the PC. Don't pick both, kind of thing here. Maybe they're just What's that?
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna. We're trapped in a little bit of a conundrum here, a feedback loop. But I was gonna say with that is that I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to fill out the game list. Maybe they're trying to just like catch as many flies with honey as possible with this. So they're like, oh look, we've got this, we've got that, and like some of the things I think are fine. Like having the women's league for Mobile Legends, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But like in another world, I do think it's a bad thing because then basically it means they're being excluded from the men's league, that they're not allowed to compete. They're not being included that way. And that's a whole bigger conversation too. But in that sort of retribution way, it's nice that they're having like a dedicated thing for them. But then why don't they have that for a lot of these other games? And like, so there's a lot of like friction points really I was going to go at with that creates this disconnect.
Yeah. And I mean, I won't speak on why they have or don't have like female leagues for like everything or something like that. Like we've had, female players in League of Legends. I think it might be like one of the more controversial things that might have ever happened in League of Legends was when there was like a team of women who played and the guys were super disrespectful. But in TLDR, they banned all supports. That's all. Like, so healing champions. Like, that's it. Like, the level of disrespect was super real there. But it's not to say that like they can't play. I think it's more of just like, it's usually just like, I play with my friends. And so like that usually ends up being like, I have some female friends, but I don't really play video games with my female friends.
I know this is a whole bigger conversation. And I think that it goes into like just gaming culture and how it's exclusive to just men a lot of times. And like they, because there's a lot of players that are female that are good. So it doesn't matter in that way. It's just a lot of times they're not given the chance, they're not given the same opportunities, and then they're just like picked on, etc. And there's a part of that where competitive games where you gotta, outlast that, but I'm sure I know for a fact they get more. And like here we are, two guys basically trying to talk for that, but this is a friction point that I see with this tournament, right? Yeah, like we're gonna know, we're just gonna be speaking anecdotally, but this is a friction point I see with this tournament because it's almost like a sore thumb sticking out. They have the one women's league with Mobile Legends, but then there's no women's league for anything else. So like I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more women in competing in Overwatch, etc. And there's a lot. Yeah, it's a bigger conversation and a bigger sort of story here. But like that is a friction point I saw with this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, like without really like speaking on that stuff, because I like again like. I don't know, but like I think it's really weird that we have so many mobile games and then we're missing out on like games that are like games like Tetris that have like a huge like community itself. And like, it might not be like considered like the more traditional esport, but I think that they should group everything into categories, like all these shooters. Like I'm not watching all this stuff, right? So it's just not good for like the thought of the viewer or the advertisers again, right? Like if we were to talk from like that standpoint, how many fighting games are there? Well, there's two. There's Tekken and Street Fighter.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I can watch two. Like if I like fighting games, I can watch two. And it's like, well, how many shooters are there? There's 11. Fuck that. That's too many hours. Like you can't expect people to like, you can try as much as you want to get people to watch all of the hours of shooters, but there's no way that they can physically watch that many without having it on like 2 times speed, right?
Right.
So like they have to shut them down.
But that's where I think they're not trying to get one person to watch all of it. They're just trying to pick up different pods of people from different games to watch their game, etc. And yeah, I don't know how much they're worried about the advertisement money or the viewership generally. This is probably proof of concept, probably a lot of like sports washing like we've seen and talked about, which is another big old topic. But yeah, they only had one sports game. I mean, Rocket League's a sports game technically, but it's Rocket Cars. Otherwise they had not FIFA, they had Football Club, right? They have like 11 different shooters with a lot of different like variations on that. They have League, they've got Dota, which is what you want for a MOBA. But then, and like that's also interesting because how much of our view is like, just the point of view of North America, what we're familiar with, what we see on our bubbles day in, day out, and like how much is on the world stage. Like Free Fire, man. I want to see Counter-Strike, man. I'd rather see Counter-Strike. I'd rather see, all these like other big name games. I'd rather see Mortal Kombat included in that fighting game, right? I would like to see Smash Bros, but I know that's not going to touch. But yeah,
I mean, just a special thought is like, how many of these games? Only because you like said this, and it sparked my interest, right? Like, how many of these games have issues with like IP? Like Mortal Kombat would be a huge one where like their game is now going to be played on like the huge stage, might be on the Olympics. Are you going to give Homelander, who's in Mortal Kombat, like Olympic stage, like where he's just like crazy Nazi murderer person, stuff like that, right? Like you have like serial killers, Freddy Krueger and stuff like that in Mortal Kombat. So it just might not be, that might be like one of the things.
That's a great point. That's absolutely a great point with that. Like you're competing against companies and their business and IPs, and then how can they show it across the globe with all the different
licensing deals have like a lot of fine print to the point. And like I say this as like a Magic player because if I play MTGO, there is a potential where I don't get certain cards on digital because the licensing agreement wasn't done well enough. And I'm not even joking. Like this like I think it took like a year and a half for us to get the Warhammer 40K cards onto Magic the Gathering Online. But then but anyway, that's just like a different story. But licenses is basically what I'm just saying.
It's a really fair point, man. It's a really fair point, and it's something that I'm sure the Olympics is going to have to deal with as they develop what their system is going to be. And like I know the Olympics has been struggling on the world stage, and as far as places hosting it, a lot of a lot of cities don't feel it's financially viable. They're losing a lot of money. It's not bumping tourism, etc. So they're hoping that esports is going to help do that. Maybe they're hoping it's going to drive costs down. Like there's some sort of angle for sure, and I'm sure that's going to play in. And then adding that licensing aspect of it is going to make that even more complicated because you're dealing with corporations, you're dealing with big billionaires basically, and like you just don't have to deal with that when it comes to something like the NBA or the NFL, where they're just collectively agreeing, oh, we're going to do this new thing this year, and they vote 2/3 majority and they do it basically, and then that's it. Whereas, yeah, it's a lot, and we'll see how it kind of goes. I'm excited for EWC next year or the year after that because I think there's a lot of lessons that they've learned by doing it in earnest. I think there's a lot of things the community and the organizations learned in competing at these games. And then I think us as the viewers, we learned a lot about these games, these players, the Esports World Cup as a whole. And looking forward to maybe see what the Olympics will do, and looking forward to see what other tournaments will do. I'm excited for Evo and seeing what they're going to be able to do because they're another really big one that brings an international presence, mostly to fighting games, but they're able to have that competition. And like if they're able to spice that up even more with some of the ideas they showed here, like that trophy system, chef's kiss. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But, that's all I really, my final thoughts for Esports World Cup. Nick, do you have any last words for that, or are you ready to move into Magic the Gathering?
I think we can. I think we can move on. I don't really have like anything else for EWC.
All right. Well, yeah, I know you're also eager to talk about Magic. I'm a little bit eager to look through this. I was able to catch this earlier, but our next subject matter for this podcast, and thank you for continuing to watch here, we're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering's ban list. They just updated the ban and restriction list this past Monday, yesterday, the 26th, and it was a date we expected was going to come, and truthfully, some bans that we expected to happen too, but then some that we didn't. So let's bring us into the screen here, kind of get us into shape. Nick, I want you to lead us through it because you are definitely more versed in this, but I know the biggest one that I saw, and I'm skipping ahead here, is that they banned Grief in Modern, they banned Grief in Legacy. Otherwise, I don't recognize any of these other cards here. So do you want to start from the top, or do you want to like just kind of give us a overview first?
No, we can start up at the top. Like Standard has no changes. Like right now, like nothing's really like glaring in Standard, and they take like they take a pretty measured approach when it comes to like Standard. Usually, I don't think I ever really have too much issues when it comes to something that they're banning in like Standard. Pioneer, both of these cards were egregious.
Well,
like I
hold on real quick. Hold on. I just want to chime in. Like I've covered 3 of these ban announcements with you, and I don't think I've seen a change in Standard at all 3 of them yet. So like it seems like it's a pretty like stable format that people aren't really worried about complaining about. Just want to throw that in there.
We'll probably see more bannings like going forward because of how deep the pool of Standard cards is going to get, because every pack that comes out is still Standard legal for 3 years. Plus, we're about to have a new set called Foundations, right? I think it may be Foundations 2024. And basically what Foundations is an extended Standard set, which will last for 5 years instead of the normal 3. Okay. But it has cards that aren't in the other packs. They're going to be brand new cards and stuff like that. And what they're hoping for is for this to be like Standard staples or cards that like maybe can fit into a bunch of different decks. So we might see some glaring changes when it comes to new as that acclimates itself into the Standard format, right? And new packs start coming out. We might see bans from either the new packs or Foundations because of how they interact with each other. I think that will be where we'll get the bans for Standard, but nothing real glaring most of the time. Like it's been a while.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like, that's interesting that they're going to have the extended packs for Standard. lasting 5 years rather than the normal 3, and they're aiming for that to be like the skeleton for a lot of decks.
Yeah, and the 3's only been recent. Like it only just recently
yeah.
happened within the last year that they switched
We'll see
to a 3-year.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes because we know they're very good at this stuff. I say sarcastically. So moving into Pioneer, we've got Amelia band as well as Soren band. What's the lowdown on these cards? Amalia, sorry.
So Amalia and Soren are egregious cards. Like they're.
We've talked about Amalia.
Yeah, I've said it before. Like I didn't think that they were gonna ban Amalia so soon, but I knew like immediately as soon as I played against the Amalia deck as Is It Phoenix, which is still like in the format. It's like the deck that I play is still interactable and stuff like that. This card is one of the most scary cards, and one underneath it, the Soren card, they're both equally as scary, basically, and they force like really gross play patterns. They don't play with each other, but to show you this Amalia card, right? There is. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to jump in. If I recall correctly, this is the card where players are able to like bump her to like 18 and then push her to over 20, so that it becomes an infinite combo, right?
Not an infinite combo. It just became an infinite loop. So it just breaks the game. Unless like you have to like basically you just like have to concede, or it goes to a draw. I'm not really sure how you do it in like tournaments, because they don't have like time. It's just time for both players rather than time per person. But yeah, this is the one that can go infinite loop for a stupid reason. It forced a lot of really weird turn 2 to 3. Like this is like one of the decks where I was like, it'll kill you on turn 3. Like with like God hands, like it could get crazy.
Yeah. And
like turn 3, you're dead. Or turn 3, it has like a 20/20 and everything's gone. And you can't kill the 20/20 with most decks that are out. Like, so it had a lot of, oh, this just happened and you're screwed now. That's it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And the card wasn't really like super expensive, but it created a lot of weird play patterns for people. It's very strong. And it was very, like the deck itself was very synergistic and cohesive. Like there wasn't really any parts that were kind of like, not like dead. I don't want to say like dead cards because all these decks are like pretty efficient. It's not that they're dead cards. They're just not as powerful as like your star card. Like, you know what I mean? Like you'll have like 20% of your deck would be like synergistic, but not like incredibly cohesive in your deck to work with everything. Amalia, on the other hand, like is cohesive with everything. Everything's everything. And people were like, oh, well, you could just ban the Walker, which is like the B part of this AB combo, right? And like, no, we learned our lesson in multiple other formats, like get rid of the thing that's doing the thing rather than like try to band-aid it and push it back to like 3 mana or 4 mana instead of a 2 mana drop.
So that makes sense to why Amalia has been banned. You know, let's move into Soren, and can you give me some like insight about what Soren?
All right, so he's 3 mana. He has 4 loyalty. The way loyalty works is you see the pluses and minuses.
Yes.
On the side here. So the pluses and minuses, +1 does something, +1 does something, -3 does something, right? Usually the minus ability is not castable. Like if it's castable on as soon as the card comes out, it's usually not that crazy. But what happens here is there's a card called Vein Ripper. And let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. Is Vein Ripper. And Vein Ripper's a vampire. Okay. So this card is for 3 mana. So on turn 3, you put this card out and then you -3 and you put any vampire from your hand onto the battlefield. The card Vein Ripper is 7 mana. It's a 6/5. And whenever a creature, it's flying. And whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life.
So you're just dropping a big monster with a big effect
on turn
pretty
3.
Easily. On turn 3. So I know you said the -3, but how do you get to -3?
It just has 4 to start.
Yeah, so you spend them?
Yeah, that's it. You you see how it has a 4? Like,
yeah, no, I understood.
So basically treat it like 4 counters.
Okay, yeah,
removes
that's
the
the part I
counters.
wasn't sure about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the easiest way to like think about it. They're, it's pluses, minuses. Like usually it's like, these are called loyalty counters, but they don't call them loyalty counters anymore.
Right. And you
They
can
don't
only
like
do the effect once per turn or once ever.
once per turn.
Okay. So like in theory, like basically you can drop a 7/7 every like third or fourth turn.
Yeah, I mean, like usually there's only Vein Ripper in the thing, but the problem being is that Vein Ripper, if you go back to Amalia real quick, it has an ability on there. So Amalia has War, pay 3 life. In order to target this creature, right? Otherwise, the ability will be countered, right? This is literally counter target ability or spell that targets this creature. That's what ward is, unless they pay 3 life.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Vein Ripper, who's a 6/5, and you do it on turn 3, in order to target him and kill him, it's sacrifice a creature on the Vein Ripper.
Wow.
So he's a 6/5 flyer with sacrifice a creature to target the creature. And if you do that, he also has an ability whenever a creature dies, not your creature, your opponent's creature. It's just whenever a creature dies on the field. So if you sacrifice your creature to target this thing, you lose 2 life and they gain 2 life just for you wanting to target this thing.
Kind of nutty, man. So that makes a lot of sense to why Sorin is banned here, and it was probably wreaking havoc. These vampires running the board in Pioneer overall. If you're okay, I'd like to push us a little forward and move into Modern, because I think those are very good explanations on why these were kind of like looked down on. In air quotes, Vein Ripper is kind of busted, and Sorin is enabling you to drop Vein Ripper turn 3.
Yeah, their prices were crazy. Just so you know, like their prices on Vein Ripper and Sorin were like $80 a piece.
Really?
Yeah, like that, and they were a low. The weird part about vampires is that they get hit with a ban, right? The Sorin gets hit with a ban, but because of the price point, there's not like if you go to like an RCQ for Pioneer, there's maybe one vampires deck.
Okay.
Because of how expensive it is.
Right, and like that asks the question too, is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like we like Pokemon because it's accessible. The most expensive deck was like $200 total, $300 I think. And like even then there wasn't a lot of like them being played at Worlds. But like you go to like Magic here and like you've got one card costing $80 and you're going to want to run like 2 or 3, right? 3 or 4?
Yeah, they were running like 4 Vein Rippers and 4 Sorins. Like it's like you want to do it as like fast as possible. But you know, these cards exist in other formats, and what I will tell you is that the commander players are what increase or decrease a lot of these like prices. But because this is only played in one format, like no other format is going like Sorin Vein Ripper. No one cares. Like in another format, they're like whatever. We do not give at all.
Yeah, there's so many of those cards. But let's head into the Modern format, and we can see that Nadu was banned as well as Grief. And these were things we've talked about in a while. But like, run me through Nadu a little bit because we have referenced it. Why do you think they're targeting it now?
So the last ban announcement was right before the a big tournament. I can't remember the name of the tournament. It was
back in April, maybe April or June.
June. It was June 24th, but I can't remember the tournament for Modern that was happening like right afterwards, like literally that weekend. Okay, so they decided that they weren't going to ban Nadu at all and Grief to change like because the big tournament was happening. And they speak about this in this ban and restricted announcement. Okay. But Nadu itself, hold on. I have a quote because Wizards of the Coast they do not know how to hire people whatsoever. So Nadu, here's a quote for Nadu based on this is what one of the people at the company said. In one of these meetings, there was a great deal of concern raised by Nadu's flash granting ability for commander play. This is not a commander set, by the way. This is called Modern Horizons 3. Okay? It's a modern set. Right? So understand like where they're coming from a design perspective. Their opening sentence, they open their mouth and they say, this card was designed like we were raised concerns about Nadu's flash granting ability for commander play. As you can see, it doesn't have flash, right? So they basically made this card around commander, and they go on to say it wasn't clear that the card would have an audience or home, something that is important for every card we make. Ultimately, and this is the creator of the card now, my intention was to create a build around aimed at commander play, was resulted in the final text. Like, again, this is not a commander set. These are not commander cards, but they're making commander cards, which tend to be broken. So you look at
they're making like, I'm not as expertise on this, like Magic specifically. I have followed it and like have been playing it on and off for the last 20, 30 years. And like, I'm confused by a lot of this, and I thought it's just me because like I'm a little out of touch of this, but it doesn't seem like it is. And like, why are you, I can understand, okay, maybe you're making with the idea that it could be used in Commander, but it's a modern set, and modern they're banning it now.
So
it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up in my head. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, the easiest way to explain it to you is that, like, you know, Commander itself is a casual format. The thing about casual play is doing things without paying for them. This is where broke shit happens. Like,
yeah,
right here, you don't have, you know, pay X, pay, you know, 5 mana, all your creatures have this turn, this ability, right? No, Nadu comes out, it's a 3/4, which they know what they're doing, and they make a 3/4. Because they know that 3 damage is a regular amount of damage that they print on cards. 2 damage is a regular amount of damage that they print on, you know, cards at lower end mana values, right? So they protected it with a 3/4 butt. It's flying, so it basically has evasion when it attacks. You need to have a flying creature in order to block the thing. That's already really strong for a 3 mana card. Then they have creatures you control. Whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Again, just fucking do something. I can't express to you like how annoying it is that like it's always just do something. Don't pay any mana, which mana is such a huge part of the game, but they're trying to like kind of remove it with all these cards, like getting effects for no real reason whatsoever. And so they built this card from a commander standpoint in order for it to literally be good in commander, and they didn't build it for like one-on-one play. And like, here's the cool thing, like building for one-on-one play and it having like the ability to be played in commander with like a lot of different players and stuff. Cause usually it's just like each opponent, right? Target opponent, each player. Like when they say like each player, like these cards can go into commander because it's a multiplayer format. Right? So like they don't do that. And then they just make like busted ability. And so besides my, you know, my bitching that I just did, Nadu itself, the reason why it's busted and needed to go was because in Modern, that big tournament that happened right after their last ban announcement on June 24th, it was like 8 out of the 10 decks in the top 8. The top 10 were 8 out of them were Nadu decks. And the reason is there's no mana investment. There's no investment to this card when you do your AB combo with this. And the B part of the combo is a card called Shuko, which was an uncommon that was 25 cents that shot up to $25. It's probably not 25 anymore because it got banned.
We had talked about Shuko the last ban and like a couple times since actually. So
yeah, it's just when you're not paying for things that you do in Magic the Gathering, the shit is busted. Like the shit is busted always.
Even as a defensive sort of reaction thing here when you're targeted by a spell or ability, but that makes sense. A lot more clarity on that. I want to move us over into grief and like Nick, do you want to be the one who said it or can I?
You can do it.
About damn time.
Yeah, no, it's been way too long, right? And like now, I'm just glad that you know, people. I'm glad and mad at the same time that people were finally on the same page when it came to batting grief. And it's again not about the power level of the card; it's about the game patterns and the interaction that it does. It's just disgusting play patterns where it's just not fun.
It goes back to the thing you were just saying about free value.
Yeah. And granted, like, you know, somebody will say, well, you got to exile a card. It's like, yeah, but it's like, it's proactive. It's not reactive. It's proactive. Reactive, and like,
yeah,
I say it all the time.
No, the proactive reactive was a great point when we did our deeper dive onto this, but it's it puts you at advantage. It puts you at like just pacing advantage, right? So like on top of that, you're just ahead.
Yeah.
Even if you exile a card.
Yep. Nothing you can, there's nothing you could really do to this card in the format to really break even on turn 0. Like you're always at a disadvantage when you're playing against this card on turn 1 or turn 0, like whatever you want to, like your turn 0 versus their turn 1, whatever you want to argue. Like long time coming. Everybody who said it shouldn't have been banned in the first place, like, how do you fucking feel now? Like for the last year, people saying that it's not busted, and we just needed to show like this is the problem with Magic players. I'll say it right now. They're always like, after the card gets banned, it's like, yeah, but we didn't find the show that made the card obviously busted. It's like, shut the fuck up and think for yourself. Like, I hate this argument of like, my whole argument was like giving you an exact scenario on, it doesn't matter what the cards are around Grief. This exact scenario is disgusting and no one should want to play when this is there. And that's the reason why it gets banned.
Well, that's what we saw, that this card, this deck took over. It was like something like an 80% play rate, had like a 60% win rate, something like that.
50%. At one point, it was like 50% for like a week. It's died down now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, the deck wasn't touched. Like it took Grief out, and Grief was in the format. It was rampant in the format. Like if you were running black and not running Grief, you were stupid. Like legitimately, like unless your deck really, really, really couldn't fit it, like Death and Taxes or the other but the other Fabricate energy combo deck that came out. Like these decks don't run it because it's just not viable to run it. Every other black deck, if you're not running Grief, you were just handicapping yourself for no reason.
Well, like, yeah. And I do want to just add in, because I want to push this, into the next couple formats. I'm sure that the players that disagree with Grief or said it doesn't need to be banned, they're probably sitting there saying the same thing that you were saying. Wizards doesn't know what they're doing, kind of stuff. And like,
I agree.
They might not be, they're not wrong, but in that way, they probably don't even know entirely what they're talking about. They're kind of focusing on other stuff. But maybe we're also seeing a smaller population at this point who've finally seen it and gotten tired at their LGS and want to move on. But like I said, I want to move us on into Legacy, which we can see Grief is banned. Same sort of reason, especially in a format like Legacy. That's big deals. Then Vintage. We have Urza's Saga and Vexing Bauble. Let's start with Urza's. Do you have any information or knowledge based on what this is or why?
Urza's huge. Urza's Saga is huge. Like, it's a great card. But again, you're not paying. So here's the way Sagas work. They come onto the field, right? And they start off on chapter 1. Right? Every turn, right? Every turn, after your draw, it goes to chapter 2. So basically, it's like a book.
It moves to the next chapter. Okay.
Yeah. Right. The first chapter is it's just a land that adds mana, 1 colorless mana. So it's doesn't add colors, but whatever. When it goes to chapter 2, if you spend 2 mana, you can create a 0/0 artifact creature that gets a +1/+1 for each artifact you control.
Okay. I can kind of already see where this is going. Yeah.
Right? And so chapter 3, and here's the cool, interesting part, right? Because the Urza Saga chapter 2 is an activated ability that it gains. It doesn't lose the previous chapter ability when it goes to the next chapter. So chapter 3, after you draw, trigger happens, search your library for a card with mana cost 0 or 1 and put it onto the battlefield, an artifact card. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
In response to that, you can make another token, another construct token, and search for your artifacts. So you can have 2 constructs, which would, if you just had the 2 of them out, that's a 2/2, and you search to make it each be a 3/3. That's without any other artifacts onto the field for the most part, right?
Yeah.
It's really solid. The reason why it's getting restricted in Vintage is because Vintage has all of the moxes and 1 mana crazy shit. Is the way that,
Gotcha.
like, it's got the stuff that, like, that is really expensive, you know, like $4,000 cards and stuff that you can only run one of. Like, so like you can search for like your moxes and stuff like that. And you know, I'm sure there's other intricacies for like Vintage, because like I only play like 2 Vintage decks and I'm not very too knowledgeable about Vintage. But again, the 3rd chapter, you're not paying any fucking mana for it. Like not even one,
Free
bro.
real estate.
Not even one. Like here's what
real
pisses,
estate.
Here's what pisses me off. Here's what pisses me off about this card. It has the ability to tap and pay for itself if that ability costs 1 fucking mana. Like, fuck you. Like, I don't understand. Like, all you did, like, you lost the one. You don't even lose anything. You just don't get to get a mana and search for an artifact, because you can float 1 colorless and sacrifice it and search for an artifact that gives you a colored mana. And so,
wow,
like,
yeah.
so they're your 2 mana, right? So like, make cards pay fucking mana, even if it's 1. Like, it's so stupid. Like, it shouldn't be the normal where cards don't have to pay to do something, right? Like, that's it. Like, even chapter 2 is pay for something, right?
All right. Yeah, we're definitely riling you up too, and like the theme is like all these cards that are getting banned have a theme of they're doing stuff for free.
Exactly. Okay, go to the next card. Hold on, Vexing Bauble.
Hold on, I'm gonna take a wild guess here. Vexing Bubble, you're gonna do something for free. It's an artifact.
Right. Go ahead and read it. It's like
whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. What? 1 mana, tap, sacrificing Vex Bauble, draw a card, and it costs 1 mana, colorless.
So this card again, like, just to talk back about the Urza Saga, which searches for all of the mana rocks that are 0 mana and stuff like that. If you pay 0 for something, you didn't pay any mana, so it gets countered. So Vexing Bauble, because it, like, if you have 4 of them in your deck and you play it on turn 1, in Vintage, nothing that they pay 0 mana for can they use. It just gets countered. So like, and there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. Power 9.
Right.
And granted, they're probably not running all of like Power, right? But like Power 9 is 0 mana for the most part.
This covers anything that gets played for free, was what you said, right? I just want to clarify from my understanding.
This counters grief. This counters the grief as well. But like, you'd have to go first. Like, in order for that to be beneficial, right?
Gotta win a coin flip.
Yeah, so this card's good, but again, doesn't pay any mana for a very proactive thing. Like, it's very proactive. Like,
it also seems very
for anymore.
It seems very specific. That's kind of grown out of the specificality. I know, like, it's in Vintage format as well. So like, we know that's you have a lot more to cover. They probably didn't make it expecting that longevity, like thinking about that long term, but then here we are, and
they don't have enough play testing, like, and not even like really, like, it's not time period. They need a more diverse background for the people play testing and making cards, like, based on, like, especially based on the statement that I have of the person who made Nadu. Like, they don't know Magic the Gathering, they're just making cards. So like,
in a little bit of
things.
Yeah, in a little bit of fairness too, I imagine that after making cards for 30 years, it's like making a new Simpsons episode, right? Like, they've already done it, perhaps.
No fairness. Like, a person who's been playing League of Legends for the last like 14 years, right? Like, if they were to make a new champion, they're not going to make a champion who has an ability that is the exact same ability as a champion who came out 10 years ago. Like, these cards are prevalent. Like, Shuko was a prevalent card in a main staple format.
Yeah.
In Cephalid Breakfast. There's no reason to forget the card.
But like, that's to push back on that point too. They're not sunsetting characters in League of Legends. They sunset cards, and then they bring them back in different formats. So, and like, I agree with you. I'm not like trying to like push too hard on that. But it's kind of prevalent and obvious, and like, yeah. overall though, this kind of wraps up our ban list. We have Explorer here, Amalia and Soren being banned.
Explorer is only because you don't know that Explorer is the digital version of Pioneer, and it's called Explorer because all the cards aren't in the digital format yet. So kind of like what I was saying before.
No, yeah, I understood and everything. I was just like reading it off because it is listed out here. Otherwise, Historic and Timeless and Brawl, no changes on that. Next up is going to be their sort of announcement changes, their regards, but I don't really feel like we need to read into this too much. So
no, the TLDR for it is that they're going to do ban cadences at proper, hopefully at proper times that will give you ample time to take the bannings into account for your big tournaments, so that they don't want to, because they talk about the June 24th ban announcement, how it messed up with the Pro Tour, with the Nadu thing and everything like that. So
they're gonna like actually look at the schedule and work more cohesively with the tournament schedule to make sure that there's no big shakeups a week before.
Yeah, and this is mostly in response to Star City Games basically like bringing back a lot of competitive Magic tournaments and stuff, where they really like fell off a little bit after COVID. So that's probably like why they're saying that they're going to be watching the ban announcements more closely when it comes to the timing.
Okay. At that point, I guess I'm pretty good with leaving it there. Any final thoughts? Any send-offs you want to have for that subject matter, that topic?
No, man. Just like put mana on the cards, bro. Like it doesn't always have to be a thing, but like, you know, these cards now are just like, they're so busted because there's no mana being spent into them, and it's like, just play type 4, bro. Like I don't like, there's no mana in type 4. Just like, I don't get it. Anyway, I'm just gonna rant again, but anyway.
No, and it's a good thing to rant about because generally speaking, people like free stuff, but then that free stuff ends up hurting them here with Magic. All right, so let's wrap up Magic for now, and let's move into our final subject matter of the day. But first, of course, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking around a little bit. We've enjoyed having you here. If you want to participate, lend us your thoughts, jump into the discussion. You know where to find us, right there in the comment section. Or if social media is more your vibe, check us out at the Esports Meta on all your favorite socials, TikTok, Instagram. I think we're on Threads too, Twitter even. So check us out there. And of course, we're here on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. So you can check us here every Tuesday. We're live filming this podcast, and we like to stream here some games, hang out with the chatters, and play around with the audience, as well as doing some research topics on stream. So give us a follow. It really helps us out. Let your friends know, or just jump into the discussion because we love video games, and I'm sure you do too. All right, final subject matter topic. We're into Deadlock. This was kind of a surprise one for us, as it was for most people, because out of nowhere on Friday evening, Deadlock decided to lift their NDA. The game that wasn't happening, that Valve wasn't making, especially after the fights they had with Verge, saying, you're not allowed to do that, and Verge going, but I didn't pinky promise. Well, they didn't have to, apparently. They just could have waited another month. But, you know, we have the NDA lifted, and almost instantly on Friday, we started seeing streamers realize they could play on stream and just immediately go there. I'm going to bring us over into Shroud. Just a quick video while in the background when we talk about this. He's playing another game and literally finds out.
Wait. Oh my god, you are right.
Confirmation
I've never played
from
it.
the Discord.
I installed Deadlock, but I never actually played it. All right. They actually lifted it. Let's play it. Welcome to Deadlock. This game's in early development with a lot of temporary art and experimental gameplay. All feedback.
That's that agreement that didn't happen allegedly. But you know,
it says now all feedback welcome.
Awesome. Only difference. And now Shroud's playing the game.
It, or we wait for someone. Flom, let's run it now.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit so we can see the gameplay in the background. This was the same case for a lot of streamers. I had seen Flats, an Overwatch streamer, just immediately. And like some of the conversation around it too is that a lot of streamers, especially MOBA streamers, have had access to this game for months now, maybe nearly 6 months. And like this was the first time they've been able to jump in and like play it on stream. But some players have been getting hundreds of hours on this game already. So, Nick, we're seeing some play footage, live react. What are your thoughts here? What do you see? Because generally speaking, sorry, they're explaining a move real quick. Generally speaking, I'm seeing the lanes, I'm seeing the move. We have the mini-map on the bottom right. We've got the characters in the top center. We've got the HP bar on the left of center of character. What are your thoughts? What are you seeing here? And let me know if you want to pause anywhere.
I mean, this is what I said. It's going to be smite shooter, right? Like, I think, like, you know, it looks good. Like, overall, I think it looks a little bit too much like Fortnite mixed with, like, Fallout. Mixed with, like, for playing, like, a MOBA is what it, like, looks like. I don't think it's, like, too unique in that aspect of, like, its visuals. But it looks relatively fun, but it probably just does highlight more of the hero shooters need so much more in their game to really like it. I don't know, like for me, hero shooters feel like the genre itself is a PvE genre that is like trying to force itself into a PvP genre. But you know, that's to each his own.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying on that, and like it makes sense. This game already instantly, it feels so much smoother than Marvel Rivals does, and that might be the big contrast point I would make on here. Just like looking at it, it is a MOBA. It's gonna play a little bit different. It's more heavy MOBA with like loadouts and buying, etc. Which, by the way, we called it. And then, you know, just look at how he's moving, how he's aiming. It's so much smoother, and I don't think it's a skill thing. Shroud's one of the best aimers and FPSers. Maybe he's a little washed because he's, you know, goes streamer mode more so. But like either way, these guys, they've got so much smoother of an aim than you would see them have on Marvel Rivals. So I think this is a big thing that the game has going for itself. Otherwise, yeah, like you're kind of right in that the gimmick in a sense for a game like this, you kind of like need so much more in a shooter. Like the Call of Duties don't really fly anymore. You need to have like a whole talent tree and loadouts that are like multi-layered, and that's kind of been touted as being one of the better parts of this game, is that there's a lot of complexity and depth in the character, in the loadout, as well as the strategy style, because it does pick up more of a Dota, League of Legends buying items, and like you can change the support character into a damage character, etc. Like there's a lot of different undiscovered variety here that a lot of people are shouting out, but it is still new and it's still in a beta version. But this already doesn't look like a beta, man.
Yeah, it already looks smooth, as you've already said, right? It looks great. The information on the screen isn't too much, right? Even like the map itself isn't like too crazy. Probably a little bit too like colorful, or maybe not colorful enough. Maybe that's where like the icons could be like changed a little bit, but it really does feel like right now it feels like everything is happening around this one center location. Like the map is small because he's not really like leaving his like lane.
Yeah.
But like I have like a lot of questions. Like once it became like a lane thing, like can you actually deny minions? Are like minions like the big thing? Which he has like souls and stuff like that, right? So is it like tower defense while fighting against other people, like smite-ish like that?
I was watching a little bit of like a Flats video and bring it to a different point of view, and he was doing a better job explaining it. And maybe Shroud is, I think that's Shroud's actual first game.
So basically what I'm looking to do here is to start winning my lane.
So it is, you can deny, but then these things pop up over their heads when you kill a minion, a creep, and then you could steal the other team's that. Like he just shot the floating thing over the minion's head, kind of thing. So I think there's like the depth and intricacy in that as well, and there's gonna be a lot of like little things in there. There he goes. He shot the top thing and took the gold from that. So like it's gonna be a little bit hard to see, of course, right now. And there's a lot to this game, but that time and time again has been repeated. I've heard like a handful of different streamers that I've checked out trying to find good content to like talk over and kind of showcase a little bit of our told you so's. You know, they were explaining a lot of the different things, and it does seem like pretty in-depth sort of stuff. And yeah, they are fighting over this midpoint right now for control of their lane. You do see a little bit of a jungle. The jungle is more inside buildings and etc. It's format differently, etc. But most of the fight seems to happen in these first sort of parts of the 4 different lanes.
Yeah, you know, it looks interesting. I mean, I like watching Smite. Like, I don't think Smite is like a bad visual game to really enjoy. So this one might be interesting to watch, but also like watching a person shoot like magic and have like a sword and stuff is a little bit different than watching a person shoot a gun.
So now I have a
so it might be a little bit different from like a viewer standpoint for there.
What do you feel about that? Because just to touch on that too, like thematically, Smite is all about like gods and mythology, right? Whereas this has a very film noir / Hellboy vibe. Like literally, this character looks like Hellboy, but in blue. But you know, the other characters we saw, like Shroud and the Shroud's teammate playing, it had a very film noir aspect to it, though it was pretty bold in colors. It has a very like vintage Art Deco feel, like style wise, and like that Hellboy film noir mentality. Is that, you know, with the guns, is that going to play a big difference over the Smite, or is it just enough like difference where people are going to go, oh, this isn't Smite, like it's just like a nothing burger, but like,
oh, he's stunned me.
Yeah.
We haven't played it yet, right? So like, I'm not sure how compelling the gameplay is when you play it. Like, I can see it. It does look like it does look like nice, but it doesn't scream like amazing game to me. Like, and that's not like, and it could just be like me being like petty or something, but like that's cool. But I think like everybody's just dying for a really good PvE like Overwatch game, and like it's just. It seems weird, like the killing of your own minions and stuff like that, and then the shooting of the thing that comes out after you already kill a minion is like, that seems like a lot of PvE aspect with like an 80-20, like 80% PvE, 20% PvP. I think that would be like a little weird. But you know, you never know. Like I want to play it. Like I want to play it a little bit more before like. It
does have a better look and feel, I saw initially, than Rivals did. Like we're already saying, it's a lot smoother looking. I do want to jump back and kind of pinpoint 2 specific things that we see in this clip here. First is, what is it here? His return back. We called it. These zip lines. They're lane markers to show you which direction to go for the lane, but they're also just fast travel for people to get back. And I'm sure they're activated up to where your sentry, your champion, whatever they want to call it, your tower is. But he's back into the fight in that same center point because, you know, where the match just started, etc. And then the other thing I want to sort of note is that when he died before this, he died because he went in for a melee, I think. And they have a counter or a parry ability. That sounded new or familiar to me, but like, do you know if like Smite has something like that? We'll see this in a second. So he goes to do his melee ability right there. Now he's going to get confronted with the other person right here. He goes to hit him. He gets parried, stunned, and then he dies because he was parried, stunned. And apparently it's like a mind game system where you counter somebody in like a melee thing like that.
It doesn't seem like a good feature, to be honest. It seems like that should be unique to a character, not to the game itself.
It might be. I don't know enough about it, but as far as what happened there, that's what happened there.
Not 100%. Like the game overall, like looks good. It just doesn't look right. Like I say this about like a lot of different like. It could be that the colors for me might be a little bit too muted or something, but I think that there's a lot of like that 10 seconds of gameplay is stupid. And it's stupid because it's meaningless. Like there was no one around him, that he wasn't doing anything, and so he just killed his own minions. Like that is.
In a little bit of fairness, he might also not be familiar with MOBAs. I don't believe he's played a MOBA before this. Just, you know, so like there's going to be a learning curve, of course, with games, and not going to knock people on that. But I can understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. But was it his minions?
Yeah, those were his.
Yeah, those were his. Those aren't his.
Those weren't his.
Okay. Yeah, that's like a small little thing I want to just verify on that. But still, I understand where you're coming from. Like, you know, and like this is still a beta. They technically just went no NDA on Friday, less than 4 days ago. The game that wasn't being made, that, you know, the Verge was not sworn to secrecy on, kind of stuff, allegedly. So like, there's a lot more development time coming for this game for sure. I don't think they're going to be doing an open alpha, open beta anytime soon. Sorry, excuse me. I don't think they're going to be doing an open alpha or open beta anytime soon, but there's a lot of work going into it. Another thing I had heard anecdotally just from watching these streamers now stream this game live is that there's a lot of updates. You know, it doesn't always run amazingly smooth, but that's also, you know, what you expect from an alpha beta game. So not really knocking them for that, like high frame rate after some points or frame drops too much. But, you know, that friction you're feeling, that, like, you know, mutedness where it's like I can't tell if something's just off kind of vibe or feeling, that could be fixed potentially. Maybe it's just like a development like baseline right now.
I figured out something. Like one of the things that's bothering me that I couldn't put my finger on it. The ground is too clean. There's no paper. There's no like there's graffiti all over like the place, right? Yeah. And advertisements and stuff like that. But there's no like it doesn't.
There's no texture. It's very flat.
Yeah, very flat. Like so.
Which could be completely a dev thing, a beta thing, where they're just, you know, rather than trying to optimize this, they're just trying to make it run smooth. So absolutely, and like that might be a fair assessment to sort of identify there right now. Like some of the textures might be more flat, muted than you'd kind of expect in a finalized game.
Oh, definitely. You can see it in the statues and stuff. So you're definitely right about that.
All right. So, you know, this is the big thing happening. I think a lot of this segment too is like us wanting to say, look at us. We told you so. We called it when we saw the screenshots. This was more of a MOBA than it was going to be an Overwatch type arena game. It is still an arena shooter. It's got more of a Smite aspect to it, confirmed. They're doing it in a very unique way, but like unique for like a third person over the shoulder shooter sort of thing, rather than you know, this is very Dota-esque. I'm sure they're taking a lot of information and learnings from Dota and League to try to make something like this, because those are the pinnacle of MOBAs.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I'm interested to see is if they put, like, because in League and in Dota we have like neutral objectives, right? And the neutral objectives tend to be more team fighty. So
there are neutral objectives in the jungle and et cetera. So the equivalent of dragon, et cetera.
I mean, I think they should treat this like original, like Alterac Valley, where like you could do something and like summon something and like change. I don't know, like something like that would be cool. So
maybe that's the direction we got to send to Blizzard. Maybe like that's the next Plunderstorm-esque game type they make, right? They just make a standalone Alterac Valley-esque dual side attack war kind of game, you know. But anyway, you know, any final thoughts, any wrap up here for this game or notes as we like send off? You know, this is the first time I think you've seen the play or the more extended footage of this game. So what do you see? What do you think? Any final send off here?
I think the game looks smooth. It looks fun. I do think that the colors need like a little bit of work. But that could be just like their, you know, this is their alpha build, their beta build, whatever, you know, and then they do have something that's finalized and cleaned up. Because I do feel like people who are colorblind or stuff like that might have a little bit of trouble with minute little details and stuff like that. Like I have a little bit of trouble with certain colors right now that's going on. with some of the characters and stuff like that. So that's the only real like issue that I see. Other than that, it looks smooth, it looks fun, and like I can't wait to really play it.
All right, another hard question, really just specifically. Do you feel like this has a competitive viability? And I'm not going to ask you something like, is this going to be the Overwatch killer? I don't like to subscribe to that stuff. I know a lot of people are itching for a new game, but like this is another shooter. It's probably going to take some people, which is fine, and it's probably going to give some people, which is also fine. But in that same way, do you think it's going to be able to stand on its legs as a viable competitiveness, knowing the environment right now and knowing what the information we have in front of us currently?
No, I think that this will
Really?
be a game that like I think it'll survive. And I personally, I think that this game should probably go more towards the community side of like Fortnite, of like doing stuff that way. Like I see things with laning phases and stuff like that having more of a problem being competitive because of how many people have to dedicate their time. Like how long is a match for this? You know what I mean? Like that's really like,
yeah, currently it's 10 minutes into this VOD at least. So I'd imagine he hasn't gotten the one, but like I imagine it run similar to like a league game where it might be like 20, 30 minutes at least.
yeah, we already have problems. Like in this, and I'll be honest, like having like the visual will probably change, right? We'll probably have like the God view a little bit more. But just like Overwatch, this might tend to lend itself to not being very great from a visual standpoint for viewers. Like with the top down and the way the colors are and stuff like that.
So,
like it's not.
Yeah, real quick, here's a little bit of a jungle. It's not really a jungle. You go in a building and he's like just off in between looking for like these creeps or minions in the jungle. And I think they run into a boss at one point, but yeah, he's just trying to steal some jungle right now. Sorry, go on.
No, it's just, forgot where I was.
Well, if I could jump in a little bit then,
Yeah.
I do feel like it has a competitive air to it. Like that has the potential for it. They have a little couple actor objectives. I think that is one where he had to take a vase or something, or just steal like a capture the flag kind of thing and bring it to his, and they have to anyway. So like they can get a little creative with it. I'm sure it is Valve. Valve is notoriously slow, but they do also make some pretty solid games, few and far between. And then they do also do support it from a community side of things, and like they are able to like really just have a competitive scene, feel worth it, etc. So I think they're going to try to do that in that aspect. It's just a matter of what the depth can be, and like when people solve the game, quote unquote, right? That might be a big part of it. So otherwise, really the problem with games, multiplayer games, is player behavior. We see that with Overwatch. We see that with League. MOBAs have a tendency of nerding out real heavy, where it's like, you got to play this, you got to go out. And like, we've talked about that before. And really the important thing is stay out of gray screen. So like, I think that's where that's where the challenges are going to be. I think Valve is going to take this serious enough where they're going to likely have a big tournament, big thing. I don't know if they're going to have a league or if there's going to be organizations yet, but at the very least, I'm sure they're going to aim at riding this potential right now and then going from there.
Doom fist. No, I mean, like, while I agree that it'll be like competitive, I just feel like the game itself, like it'll be here, but it'll be like, I don't want to equate it to like Paladins, but like it'll be here.
Yeah, it might just be more complicated than like what an average player is gonna want, and like I'm sure the Dota and the League players are gonna like, well, actually, we're gonna be really good at this because we already play complicated games. But for things to have sustainability too, like as a shooter, you're gonna have people who are playing Call of Duty. They're gonna try to get into this. You have people playing Pokemon Unite, so they're gonna understand laning and whatnot. But then like the depth of item buys, etc. Like it's going to be a heavier learning curve for some games than others and some players than others.
Yeah, I mean, I can already see that there's a lot, like one of the big problems like Smite has is that if you're watching a person do PvE too long, it just ends up being boring. And so like I'm like looking at like him do PvE right now. He's been doing PvE for like 5 minutes. Like and League does have, the PvE aspect with like the minions and the jungle and stuff like that, but it is very much like I don't know, it feels a little bit different. Like you got to interact with the player a little bit.
I wonder too if League is more of a solved game because it's been out for so long, and like you have this is the way things are done, or this is what you do, like kind of solvedness. I'm not saying it's completely, but like you kind of have your dance, and then this one it's like, this is a player who's new to MOBAs. This is a game that's new. People are still figuring out that dance, right? So that could be a part of it. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that.
Yeah, but anyway. Yeah.
No, if you want to send us off with that, any final thoughts here, but
no, I don't. I want to keep my mouth shut.
All right, we've got plenty of time for that because we're wrapping up the episode. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nick, and thank you guys for watching if you're still with us. We really appreciate you being here. Let us know if there's anything you want to discuss, if you're looking forward to, or any of your ideas as far as what's going on. You have any thoughts on Deadlock? Do you like the ban list, what they did with Magic? EWC, did you have a good time? Let us know at our socials at the Esports Meta on all the social platforms, or you can do it right here in the comment section of the live stream or our recorded videos on YouTube and whatnot. Nick, again, thanks for joining me. It's been a long one, but appreciate the commentary. I had fun talking with you. Let's go. Want to go play some War Within, or we want to go try to jump into Deadlock, see if we can get an invite to this beta, not beta.
Definitely no invite on Deadlock yet, but probably some War Within or something.
All right, cool. Let's go do it. All right, thanks for joining us. This has been the Esports Meta. My name is Billy. That's been Nick. It's been a pleasure having you, and we'll see you next time.